Hey everyone, welcome in. This deep dive really hits close to home for a lot of people, I think. We're diving into a letter from a listener. We'll call him James. And he's dealing with a tough situation with his father, Tom.
Tough situation, yeah.
James decided to cut off contact with him. He believes Tom shows signs of narcissism.
And now he's dealing with the fallout.
Yeah, and it's a story about family and setting boundaries and really having that courage to prioritize your own well-being.
Absolutely. It's something that I think a lot of people can relate to, even if they haven't gone through it personally. Navigating family dynamics, especially with narcissism, can be so hard.
Yeah, for sure. And right away, James's letter paints this picture of Tom's behavior, like this constant need for praise and dismissing James's accomplishments.
Mhm.
It really struck me, to be honest, just how much James has been through.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing to remember. Like, we're not talking about a few isolated incidents here. We're talking about a pattern of behavior. And I think
Yeah.
narcissism, it's not just about being self-centered. It goes way deeper than that. It's about this lack of empathy, you know what I mean? This
Mhm.
inability to truly see and acknowledge the needs and feelings of other people.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack that a little bit because James gives us some really specific examples.
Hmm.
Like he says Tom would constantly say things like, "You never appreciate anything I've done for you," or "Without me, you wouldn't even be where you are today."
Oh, classic guilt trips. Yeah.
Yeah, classic guilt trips.
And I think what's so interesting here is that these tactics, right, they're often disguised as these expressions of love or concern.
Uh-huh.
So it's not like, blatant abuse or anything. It's this like subtle manipulation that can really make the other person feel indebted and kind of question their own reality.
Totally, totally. And over time, that erodes at you. And James even talks about feeling inadequate and like
Yeah.
struggling with his self-worth, which make total sense
Yeah,
given the environment he was raised in.
totally. I mean, imagine just like constant, even if it's subtle, being told that like your accomplishments aren't enough or that you owe your existence to someone else. I mean, that's going to really mess with your sense of self.
Right. It just chips away at you over time.
Mm.
And it sounds like James did try, like he tried to set boundaries with his dad.
Yeah.
But every single time,
Mhm.
Tom would either just like erupt in anger or totally shut James out, like completely, only to then come back later acting like nothing even happened.
Yeah, and that is the cycle, right? It's like this push and pull, right? It's like push the boundaries, test the limits, and then reel them back in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they set all the rules, and the other person's just trying to figure out how to exist within that.
Right. It's this never-ending cycle, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
It's heartbreaking because, these cycles can trap people for years,
Absolute.
decades even. And for James, it really impacted his relationship with his spouse and kids. And I think for a lot of people, that's the breaking point. It's like, okay, this isn't just about me anymore.
Yeah, it's like this Whipple effect. It's like the toxicity starts seeping into other parts of your life. And it's often what pushes people to say, you know what, enough. I got to put myself first, and I have to think about the people I love.
Exactly. And that's exactly what James did. He made this incredibly difficult decision, I'm sure, to go no contact with his dad, no calls, no texts, no nothing, just silence.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine that was not easy.
Oh, I can't even imagine. Even when logically that it's the right thing to do, to walk away, it's so hard. There's history there. There's years of, just stuff to unpack.
Right. And as if this wasn't already complicated enough, Tom did not take this well,
Oh, no.
like at all. In fact, his reaction, I think, is a perfect example of how someone with these narcissistic tendencies might respond when they feel like they're losing control.
Oh, yeah, I bet. It's like a defense mechanism. Like
Mhm.
they feel threatened, so they ramp it up even more.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we see with Tom, right? He doesn't just accept it, he decides to launch a whole campaign to get James back.
Oh, wow. Okay, so how does that play out? What does he actually do?
Yeah, we'll get into the nitty-gritty in a sec, but trust me, it is not pretty.
Oh, it's almost instinctual. Like someone with these tendencies, they feel that control slipping away and they just have to grab on tighter, try to regain that power.
And that's what we see, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tom doesn't just accept it. He basically goes on the offensive to undermine James's decision.
Exactly. And that's what's so important for people to understand, like we're not just talking about someone who's upset or hurt.
Hmm.
This is a strategy.
So how does that strategy actually work? What does he actually do?
Well, you can almost think of it as like a two-pronged approach, right?
Okay.
First, you've got the victim narrative. He immediately goes to everyone they know, plays the role of the abandoned father. He emphasizes his age, how lonely he is, just anything to make James look like the bad guy.
Oh, yeah, the
Just to
classic.
play it.
It's like he's trying to make everyone feel sorry for him.
Exactly. And it works, right? Because it preys on people's good intentions. So, friends, family, they hear Tom's side of the story and they're going to start to wonder, well, maybe James is overreacting. It's all about isolating him.
So that's the first part, the victim narrative. What's the second one? Because I'm guessing he doesn't stop there.
Oh, no, no, no. And this is where things get even more, well, I think insidious. Because the second part is love bombing. Oh, the love bombing.
Yes.
Poor James, right?
Oh, it's a lot. Like 1 minute you're the villain, the next you're getting showered with gifts, letters, apologies that, they sound sincere, but,
Right.
underneath.
It's all manipulation.
Exactly.
And speaking of those letters, James actually shared a quote from one that really stood out. Do you mind if I read it?
No, please. Yeah.
Okay, so this is Tom writing to James. He says, James, I know we've had our differences, but I'm your father. Family is all we have in this world, and I've always done everything I could for you. I don't understand why you've turned your back on me. I must not have been the father you wanted, but I'm still here willing to put this behind us. You can't just erase your family, son. What do you think?
It's so interesting, right? Because, like, on the surface, it seems like he's just pouring his heart out.
Right. But if you listen closely, notice how he kind of shifts the blame, right? It's James who's turned his back. It's James who's erasing the family.
Right.
And then there's that line, I must not have been the father you wanted. It's like he's acknowledging James's feelings without taking any responsibility.
It's like saying, I'll forgive you even though you're in the wrong.
Exactly.
And it's all designed to make James question himself.
Exactly. It's manipulation disguised as this, like, unconditional love. And it's so hard, because deep down, we all want to believe that our parents can change, that they want the best for us.
So we've got James right in the middle of this emotional tug of war. He's getting these gifts, these letters, all while trying to stick to his guns about no contact. And you could just hear it in his voice when Tom finally gets him on the phone.
Oh, that must have been hard. What happened?
So it's just like this back and forth, right? And Tom starts with the guilt trip. Did he get the things he sent? Does he remember everything he's done for him? James is trying to hold his ground, but then Tom just goes in for the kill. He says, space. You cut me out of your life, and now you need space. I'm trying here, James. I don't understand what I did that was so terrible. You're acting like I'm some kind of monster.
Wow. Okay, so it's like playing the victim, feigning confusion, and then making James feel like he's the one who's being unreasonable.
Mm-hmm. And it's scary how effective that can be. Even though James, he knows his dad's playbook, he still starts to doubt himself.
Of course. Because this is tapping into, our deepest insecurities, our need to be loved and accepted, especially by our parents.
So how does he handle that? How do you stand up to that kind of pressure? Because in that moment, it's not just your dad, right? Years of baggage, everything,
Right.
all coming to a head.
It's a lot, and I think that's what makes what James does next so powerful. He takes a breath, and despite the guilt, the manipulation, he says it. He tells his dad that he's never respected him or his decisions.
And how does Tom react to that? Because I have a feeling it's not, you're right, son, I'll do better.
You're absolutely right. This is that narcissistic injury, right? James trying to assert his own needs. Well, Tom sees it as a personal attack.
So what does he do?
Mm-hmm.
How does he retaliate? Because we know this isn't over, not even close.
Yeah.
So Tom's ego is smarting. James is trying to stand his ground. What happens next?
Well, instead of actually, listening and reflecting, Tom, he just goes back to his playbook, starts diminishing James's accomplishments again. Is that how you really feel? After everything I've done for you, you wouldn't even be where you are today without me. And then he even throws in, I guess I was just too good of a father, and now you think you can throw me away.
Wow. It's like he can't even wrap his head around the fact that James's decision is about James, his needs, his well-being. It always has to come back to Tom.
Exactly. It really highlights this inability to truly empathize. It's like, in Tom's world, James's actions are a personal attack, not, a healthy boundary.
Yeah. And that's got to make it so much harder for James to hold on to his convictions,
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to read about these manipulation tactics in a book, but it's another thing entirely when it's your own parent using them on you. It's like, who do you turn to? Who do you trust when the person who's supposed to love you unconditionally is using those same tactics against you?
Absolutely. And that's where professional help can be really, really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy, that can provide a safe space for James to process everything, to unpack those years of, what sounds like manipulation and really learn how to cope in a healthy way.
So it's like having someone to talk to who gets it,
Right.
who's not going to judge and can offer guidance based on, no, experience, I guess.
Exactly. And there are support groups too, specifically for people who've been through narcissistic abuse. And the power of just connecting with others who understand. I mean, you can't underestimate that.
Because it's easy to feel so alone in that situation,
Yeah.
right? Like you're the only one going through it.
Absolutely. But the reality is, it's far more common than people realize. And there are so many others who know exactly how James is feeling.
Right. So we're coming to the end of their conversation. James, despite the guilt trips, the manipulation, he sticks to his guns, tells his dad he needs time, he needs space. But Tom's response, it's chilling.
What does he say?
He says, fine, if that's what you want. But don't come crying to me when you realize how much you've thrown away. You'll regret this one day, James. You'll see.
Oh, wow. That's textbook. It's like a last-ditch effort to regain control. He knows he's losing his grip, so he throws out this prediction, tries to plant seeds of fear and doubt, make James feel like he's making a huge mistake, that he'll be back, crawling back one day.
Sounds like a curse.
It is.
Leaving James with this feeling of dread, even though he's doing what he thinks is best. So what now? What do you do with that?
Well, that's the thing about healing, right? It's not linear. There are going to be good days and bad days. And on those tough days, it's about remembering that you are not alone. That setting boundaries, even with your parents, is not selfish, it's self-preservation. And sometimes breaking away, even if it's from a parent, is the bravest, most loving thing you can do. For yourself, for your well-being.
It's about recognizing that as much as we love people, we can't fix them. We can't control their behavior. We can only control how we respond to it. And sometimes the healthiest response is to step back.
Absolutely.
And on that note, folks, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. James, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
And for everyone listening, you're not alone. Your well-being matters. Take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.